What is up, everybody? Turboversity here today, and we're going to talk about EA. Apparently, they are blaming their flop of Immortals of Avreum on people just not buying single-player AAA shooter games in today's market. So pretty much going on a whole notion that people only buy multiplayer games or games as a service. That's all that the industry is shifting towards that focus nowadays with these recent games. But me, as a single player person and mostly single player gamer, I don't care about these multiplayer games. Like, I think this is kind of corny. They're just blaming it on people not buying the game, but it's like this game wasn't really marketed like that. I heard the game was just mid at most, mediocre at most. So it's like, are you really gonna blame the gamer for a game that's just mediocre? That I didn't hear any buzz about this game. Like, nobody was raving about this game whatsoever. So it just came and just went. And apparently, it cost them 125 million to make it, and it's just a flop. So that comes with the territory of you making these big AAA games, especially like a new IP at that. I don't understand why these budgets cost this much, especially for new games. Like, why are you spending this much on a brand new IP that you barely even talked about? Like, had no buzz around it. So I don't know. I think that's an industry problem, not a consumer problem that nobody's buying this game. It's like, once again, why are they spending so much on these budgets? Why isn't that addressed? Why are you blaming gamers and not addressing these extremely high budgets for these games? Like, somebody asked them to make these graphics so realistic like this, to have to cost this much. Like, I just don't get it. But I love single player games, but I'm not gonna be at fault. I'm not gonna take any blame for not buying this game. Like, I didn't hear anything about this game at all. Like, I don't feel guilty about not buying this game. Like, it's your job as a company to make people want to buy the game. So I don't agree that the whole multiplayer route is the way to go, because once again, a lot of people don't like multiplayer games. So, and like what this guy says, I genuinely disagree. Judas is also a AAA single player shooter, and people are hyped. Yeah, people are gonna buy Judas because they know the people behind that is like the people who make Bioshock games, Ken Levine. So that game is probably gonna do well. That Judas game, I'm actually looking forward to that game. That's a single player game right there. People are looking forward to. So this whole that we're just gonna do single player and it's not gonna do well, that's just inaccurate. I've literally never heard of this game until today, when everyone is saying a flop because it's single player. Maybe you need to actually tell people about your game if you want them to buy it. Yeah, I agree. Did they even market it? I don't think so. Marketing failed you guys, not the genre. Nobody knew about it, nor did anyone I saw stand out. That was a truly awful idea. Yeah. I never heard of this game until now, so something tells me the marketing is what killed it. Yeah. Nobody even heard this game. Nobody even knew the game came out. So is it really the consumers, or is that your fault that you didn't do the proper marketing measurements to get this game out there? So it's not good when it's being a flop. It's the first time as a gamer, though not one who seems game news, has heard of this game. They say that, but games like Far Cry always sold very well. Even though they did add like multiplayer components in like the latter games, but I only play Far Cry for single player, and those games are always amazing. I always support those games when they come out. So I think we're just blaming consumers they just want to take accountability for their flop of a game right there. Bad marketing. I really see any footage for this game. I just played and loved it. Sad to hear about this. Well, the person who played and loved it, did you talk about anybody else? Like, that's the thing too. Like, if you do know there's a great game out there, like, why aren't people talking about it? Like, maybe they should make sure they're making a good game first before spending too much money on it. Yeah, like, why is this game getting not have a budget to begin with? 125 million. Like, do even the bigger games sell that many copies? I don't think even the bigger, like, well-known AAA games sell that many copies to justify that budget right there. But, they just went all out there with it, so. Resident Evil 7 and 8 were both very successful. Those are long-lasting, like, franchises and from a popular IP right there. So, of course, that's going to do well. But this new IP, I don't know why they thought that game was going to do that well like that. Like, it's like you just set yourself up for failure at that point. No, the game was almost trash. I haven't played the game, so I can't say if the game was good or not. But it's just like they just let the game out there. They just push the game out there to die at this point. Like, reviews weren't good enough, and there was zero marketing. Simple as that. Marketing dropped the ball. Seeing how no one knew about this game, including me. This game even existed? A lot of people didn't know this game was even out there, so. Oh, man. But, you know, EA wants to blame, the genre. That's why this is going to be the reason why they put like 1,000 microtransactions in their newest games at this point, because of stuff like this. I'm trying to use that to justify it. This feels like the wrong thing to take away from this situation. There are so many other factors unrelated to the genre. This person says, I am begging AAA companies to stop taking away the wrong lessons every damn time. It wasn't a flop because single player shooter. It was a flop because you spent too much, barely marketed it, and dropped it right between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. They really dropped this. Well, of course, like your game's gonna be overshadowed at that point. If you're dropping in between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield, really? I 100% agree with this. Like if you're dropping that game in between those big massive games, you just want your game to fail at that point. It's like nobody else's fault but your own at that point. EA, when you have to actually promote a game for it to sell, if that dev thinks just generally that single player games are a bad idea in today's market, hopefully they're a former dev because someone realized they had no idea what was going on in the industry and got rid of them. According to GameSpot, roughly half of the top 20 best-selling games of the 2023 in US were single-player games. Yeah, like that Harry Potter game was that sold a lot of copies of a single-player game. So people love the single-player games. Even the one that people are hyping up is the new Final Fantasy Rebirth Part 2, which is another single-player game. People are hyping that up too. So that whole theory that nobody just wants to buy single-player games is so stupid. There are so many things about Immortal of Avreum that led to it not being successful. I talked with many viewers and other statements about it, and streamers about it. Chalking up to random marketing blurb about how attractive the genre is just shows how incredibly out of touch these folks are. Immortal of Avreum flopped because everything about it is unappealing to such an extent that it should be studied in a lab. It's not even bad enough to be remembered. It's the textbook definition of forgettable. Jeez. Yeah, because at least if a game was like super bad, it at least gets mentioned and word of mouth because how bad the game was. That game was just like just mediocre, just premium, just mediocre. So people just didn't even talk about it. So now they go look right there. So I'm gonna conclude it right here. EA, stop spending so much on these games with new IPs that nobody knows about or you barely market. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense. But you know. They're gonna use any type of excuse to wheeze out to making these games full of microtransactions and exorbitant like costs that you gotta keep paying each monthly for. So it's sad to see. So definitely want to see your thoughts down below about this. Leave a like this video, and as always, thanks for watching and peace.